And I've made the mistake myself where I haven't built that relationship yet. And then, but I really have this important need. And so I connect with them and then I ask them a question right away. And I'm like, I really kind of did that one wrong.
Well, if it's a genuine question, I'm cool with it. But if it's your canned, like, hey, if you really want to increase your lead flow, book this meeting with me. I'm like, boom, unconnect. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is John Sarakis with The Climb, brought to you by the Digital Mastermind. If you're looking for a group of agency owners, a tribe of digital technologists, marketers, business owners, and now it's open to everybody. So whether you're a project manager, account manager, you're an SEOer, anybody in the digital marketing or marketing landscape, feel free to shoot me an email, john@digitalmastermind.com. Visit our website at digitalmastermind.com. And today we have an awesome show. This is actually, I had more fun on this one than I can remember with a lot of the other shows. We interviewed a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Baldock on talking about social selling, as well as LinkedIn, which is a huge B2B component, especially if you're in the marketing or biz dev space or you work for any of the other agencies. It was a great episode, chock full of how-tos, what to do's, as well as some really solid facts and statistics. But one thing I do ask is after the show, you watch it or any point in there, feel free to comment. Go ahead and subscribe. We'd love you for that. Let us know what you think. And before we get into anything else, Dave, why don't you come out here and give us some of your thoughts on the show?
Hey, check out that new camera angle you've got going on.
I know, it's kind of distracting. That's why I'm going to be looking down, looking up until we get this figured out. Also, we got some of our awards in the background. Not that anybody is looking. Those were there before we set up the angle.
Excellent. Yeah, looking good. So social selling. What do you think?
Well, I think it's something that we do all the time. It's one part content marketing. It's the other part of prospecting and business development. If you're on LinkedIn, which we talk about in the show, where I'm a proponent of prospecting on LinkedIn. What I'm not a proponent of is lack of personalization. And one of the things that Jonathan gets into is the importance of personalization on there. Right. And I just hate that. Today I got a message like, hey, John, I'm trying to learn more. And I thought you'd be a great person to connect with to help me with that. It's like, what the fuck? I mean, like, dude, come on. You didn't try. It's like, nah, we're not connecting, man. Just because you want to connect. I mean, you would have been better off if you just sent me a connection request without the lame message. And I don't want to sound critical, but at the end of the day, it's like, all right, I'm getting flooded with all the BS. And I love people. I want to connect with people. But at the end of the day, the one rule, it's got to be genuine.
Yeah, I mean, I forwarded you an email I got last week where, it looked like an automated sales pitch, but they referenced 3 internal employees and a connection that I had on LinkedIn. Now, the connection I had on LinkedIn was a client, but the client was from like 5 years ago. I haven't talked to them in 5 years. And this email saying that this client told him he should talk to me, and I'm like, bullshit. Gone.
What's crazy about that one client you mentioned? They have an awesome masterclass, by the way.
They do. Yep.
Yeah.
So, I just, it infuriates me of just how, like you said, ingenuine the process is. And so what I really love about what he shared is the tool set is still, it's not automated. It's not, some robotic thing. It's still people. We're just he's just empowering your team to have a greater net. And
if you want to speed up what you're doing, yeah, absolutely. You can totally use his tool. But even if you didn't, I think some of those key takeaways, like he mentions the ratios of how to share. He breaks down, some of the other tools that are on LinkedIn that I don't think enough people are aware of. And I wrote down a note. If your company isn't doing LinkedIn, you're definitely not getting enough from LinkedIn. It's the truth. Like, yeah, I was just on a call with someone on our sales team today. I'm just going through like, all right, what are your LinkedIn activities? So if you're not spending time there, then you're doing yourself a disservice.
How far are we away from a ecosystem of LinkedIn that robots are posting and creating content to basically maximize the algorithm so that other robots share the created content, and actually humans just stay away from social media because it's coming. Just one day everybody's gonna be like, well, we don't need to be on there anymore. The robots got it. So
yeah, the robots are doing it. But I think there's people, we're communal creatures. So no matter what, we're gonna want to connect. So if LinkedIn wears itself out or one of them falls out, people are going to figure out that way of communal. And it could just be like, all right, hey, we're just going to go to the coffee shop. You think people don't want to, you don't think people want to connect?
No, that is correct. And you just nailed it. Let's go to the coffee shop. Let's real, genuine connection. So I think we've passed peak social media, and it's going to be in steady decline from here on out. And the real, genuine meetings are going to start. So, because one thing I want to bring up is Lunch Club. We've been doing Lunch Club quite a bit lately, right?
And 20 each street.
So I've only done 3, and 2 of the meetings referenced RPA, robotic process automation. I guess that's the new hot thing. So all they did is talk about making making apps to automate things, and so I think social media is going to be the first one that gets automated if it's not already happening.
Yeah, you would think the social media companies would be smart enough to put something in the way of their demise, but is it just one of those things where just they can't?
Because according to their algorithms and everything, what they it's content, it's activity. They live off activity, and so I think that they're going to always encourage it. Didn't he talk about that? In the interview about how LinkedIn knows where their business comes from and they encourage those things. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. He said they want they want as much activity as possible, so they're going to embrace anything that creates more activity on their platform.
Right. So
yeah, it substantiates what you're saying, but I just think there's something based on quality. Twitter, one of the worst things that ever happened to Twitter was the apps that would create all the followers, and you would see people like, oh, they got 800,000 followers or whatever, and it's somebody you'd never heard of early on. And then there was the ratios where if like you follow, I hated these things. It was like you followed 50 people, you unfollowed 25, 10 of them would stick or something like that. It was this kind of this race. But those are the things that just destroyed Twitter. And at the end of the day, now it is what it always was just this. It's kind of a news feed where it's just all right.
Just to show how out of touch I am with Twitter, I had an account. I never used it. Finally deleted it.
What was your?
It was 6 years ago. I never got it. I never understood the need to comment in 140 characters. But the people talk about, they'll like say, look at that ratio on a post. I'm like, what does that even mean? I do not get that. And supposedly, if a post gets more comments than likes, that's saying something. I don't know.
I don't know about that. Yeah. So I mean, there were engagement scores, and there's still engagement scores with social media. A little bit. I mean, we got people that manage this stuff, so I'm not as involved as in
thank goodness.
But there were engagement scores, right? So if there was X number of comments versus X number of likes and X number of like retweets or shares or something, there was a whole methodology to that, which I hate all that. To me, that's all just gross. It's just like you have this quant person that is just wanting to like hack the algorithm rather than create something that's really juicy and genuine of quality. And as a marketer, I'm always going to be kind of pulled in that direction. But as a human, I want to like, no, let's not have something that sucks. And let's just continually go down that track rather than trying to hack it with bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I've moved most of everything I'm consuming to a paid model, meaning I'd rather pay for it than get it for free and then have them harvest my attention. Because when the business model is your attention, you're going to get shit. And so I would rather just pay, so it's like Pandora. Like I'm always shocked when I meet people that are listening to Pandora and a commercial comes over it. And I'm like, you can't afford $4 a month? Like, come on. Just, you know, and I don't know how much it is now, but I mean, it's so cheap. And I'm like, I use Pandora a lot, so I pay for it. I don't want that commercial. And I enjoy my listening experience way more than other people.
I think I'm grandfathered in on Pandora, where I'm paying whatever their rate was in 2009 because I paid for it consecutively every year. And the other thing too is, I know we've talked about this before, is I don't want to choose the songs I'm listening to. I'd rather have an algorithm choose those. So I guess that's a positive thing for an algorithm. But I guess kind of circling back, it comes down to just really genuine organic content, and that's a lot of what Jonathan was preaching, is just leading with that foot forward. Another cool thing that he took it much further is both had improv experience. Granted, he was at Second City, so I can't even compare myself to anything to that, but it's something that I thoroughly enjoyed. And I think it was just it's going to be a great conversation for anybody that's an agency owner, especially anybody that works in business development, because it is social selling, to listen to. Hey, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so I'd love for you to give listeners your climb, your journey. What does that look like?
It's a long one. So I'll back it up a certain distance, and then you can tell me if I should go further. I stopped doing that and did acting and comedy and own a camera rental company for a couple of years. And then I started working for LinkedIn for 9.5 years. And now I consult at a place called Social HP, which is focused on advocacy.
Wow! All right. The thing that popped out to me the most was the comedy piece. Yeah. How long did you do that?
I did it at Second City in Toronto.
Okay, Second City's no joke. That's the real deal.
Yeah. It was fairly real at the time. It was pretty scary. So I did a bunch of classes just doing it for fun, and I was doing acting classes on the side. And then I just kept taking more classes, and eventually had auditioned to get into their conservatory, then went through the conservatory. Eventually we formed a comedy troupe, and we did improv all around Toronto, and periodically we'd perform at Second City.
That's fantastic. I did a little bit of improv. I did it for a couple of years. I took classes mainly and did a couple shows. What is your biggest takeaway from improv that you use or just in your comedy or an acting experience that you use in your career today?
Well, I'd say there's two. So one is listening. I've become a fairly good listener. I was a terrible listener. Now I'm pretty good at it. And because you have to pay close attention to what's going on when you're doing improv. And then the second thing is wherever you think the line is, it's much, much further. So what you can get away with in a conversation is a lot further than you think it is.
I might challenge that.
Well, you can find the line pretty fast if you want to, but you'd be surprised at what you can get away with in business conversations when comedy's not normally a part of it. So.
I love that. All right, so today we're going to be talking about social selling. I know that's where you consult from. So if you could give Dave, myself, and our listeners a definition or an idea, what does social selling mean? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And there's a few things, but you're using your social networks as a rep, or if you're in sales in some fashion, which we all kind of are to a certain degree. So you're using your social networks to build relationships, to make introductions, to get meetings, and to help you with the sales process.
Perfect. All right. So you did a little stint at LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, 9.5 years.
Okay. All right. So yeah, almost a decade, right?
Yeah.
So with those changes, what's happening with LinkedIn and social selling? LinkedIn's probably the one that's most near and dear to me. It's the one that I happen to use the most. What are the best social selling techniques?
Well, so they also have some products that they promote that are actually really quite good. So first off, it's a massive network, and if you're in business in some way, shape, or form, it's expanding a lot. But if you're in business in some way, shape, or form within the corporate world, odds are the people you want to talk to are on LinkedIn. So understanding that your network can be a really good, powerful tool to help you navigate your way into that. And if you're working at an organization or company and you've got colleagues, then there are ways to utilize your colleagues' networks to help you get into those business relationships that you want to work with. And then some best practices, one, you need to have a really nicely filled out LinkedIn profile, professional photo. Still can be fun, but you need to have a photo. It's good to share content, good to publish content. LinkedIn's it's evolved a lot since when I first started there at the beginning of 2011, when it was primarily looked upon as a place where you would post your resume, which is, your profile was basically your virtual resume. And if you needed to find a job, you would use it to do that. And it was where companies represented themselves. Now it's become a publishing platform. So people are sharing ideas. There's a lot of thought leadership that's going out, a lot of industry news. So it's a way to really stay in touch. And so that's been a big shift. Companies are using it differently as well. So there's definitely some B2B or B2C advertising, and they're asking salespeople to utilize the LinkedIn network in order to be able to book meetings rather than just cold call like you would have expected you would have had to do in the past, or perhaps sending cold emails. So there's a few of those things. LinkedIn has implemented a few different tools. One of them is called Sales Navigator, and so that's a platform that you can sign up for. And basically, what it'll do is it'll keep track of all of your prospects. It'll let you know when they've left organizations, when somebody new has started at a company that you care about, and what you can keep track of certain people in certain roles, as well as it'll tell you who that can introduce you to those people. So that becomes a really powerful tool. And then with the amplification of everybody in your company, it'll allow you to extend your network across all of your colleagues' networks in order to be able to make those introductions and get those meetings booked.
Now, as far as the headline, so a few things jumped out at me there. The headline, I have a practice. If somebody has like, hey, I'm an influencer, dog walker, or whatever in their headline, like I help people, I will not connect with those people, because I know the moment I connect with those people, I'm getting some follow-up message and then another follow-up message. What are your thoughts on how to have the best profile?
Well, everyone's going to represent themselves a bit differently. And I think you also touched on, who should you be connecting with? So, one would be, when we were at LinkedIn, we were always instructed to not just put your title at the top, your job title. It would be like, how are you providing value?
Yep.
And so you kind of, hinted at, some of those ones that they're providing value in a different way. So I think you can kind of get a sense of how people are connecting with you as to how fast they're likely to circle back and ask for something. And I've made the mistake myself where I haven't built that relationship yet. And then, but I really have this important need. And so I connect with them and then I ask them a question right away. And I'm like, I really kind of did that one wrong. Like,
well, if it's a genuine question, I'm cool with it. But if it's your canned, like, hey, if you really want to increase your lead flow, book this meeting with me. I'm like, boom, unconnect. Like, we're not doing that, bro.
Should we do a live critique of John's LinkedIn profile?
Oh, that would be cool. Would you be down for that?
Yeah, get it up. You can bring it up. Sure.
All right. Give me a second.
I've got a lot of stuff on there.
All right. So Dave's going to pull up my profile so we can beat up on me, which is fine. I got to tell you.
Yeah. Let's have a look. See.
Yeah. And speaking of which, you don't want to pull up Dave's because he's got a photograph that I believe is 6 years old and it's a little bit grainy. We just talked about this the other day. So it's another point driven home to get that updated. And I know with social selling, like how much time should somebody be spending on this? Like, is this platform more so based? Is this like how people should be selling more so when they're cold calling? Can you talk about that?
Okay, so we can touch on a few things there. Platform is probably like, who is the audience, right? So depending on what you're selling, but if it's anything mildly corporate, then you're probably going to want to invest your time on LinkedIn. And then also probably back it up just a little bit. If you own your own company, or if you have a company, or you're obviously working for an organization, they're going to have a company page. And so content or the engagements that you get, there's owned, earned, and paid. And so owned would be your assets, like your profile, your company page, etc. Then paid would be if you're running a paid campaign. So, you're dropping 10 grand on a paid campaign on LinkedIn, or you've got, pay-per-click ads on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever. That's all well and good. And then earned is when you share a story and you get likes and comments and reshares and things of that nature. And that's all free marketing, because if I share a story and you like it, it's going to go to every single one of your connections, or if people have chosen to follow you that aren't connected with you. So there's a way to amplify your message without investing a lot of money. And that's more the world where I spend my time, is around earned content. And then specifically when we're talking about that, then for social selling, what you share is going to, you want to provide value to your network. So we have a sort of an ideal ratio when I was at LinkedIn, which was for every 6 pieces of content, you had a ratio which was 3-2-1. So it'd be 3 pieces of thought leadership, 2 pieces of industry, and 1 piece about you or your company. So you're not just a blowhorn for products and services. You're actually, if I share a thought leadership piece and it happens to be really valuable, to people that I'm connected with, then it raises my profile to say, hey, Jonathan's sharing things that are good, and he's not just trying to pitch and sell me something.
Right. I love that. And then, so I know Dave pulled up the profile. I got so many more questions based on that. Let's go ahead and just, beat me up for a minute, and I'll
Sure.
get back to this. All right. There we go. Actually,
Okay.
let's hear it. Let it rip.
All right. Well, so the photo looks great.
Oh, thanks.
Your background image, is that one that is just available on LinkedIn, or did you specifically select that?
No, either I took that or somebody in the office took that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, you want that background image to be something that kind of touches on or relates to what you do. So it doesn't have to be a company banner, but this kind of tells me that you may be having a conversation over coffee. So that could be a decent representation of how you're spending your time.
That could be better though, is what I'm sensing. The unsaid, John, you're not selling coffee
or papers.
All right. Okay. All right. So
you're not in the office.
Update hero image.
I would say that image could be a little bit better. And
feel free to be brutal here. Yeah, it's rather be direct.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, your title is your title, which is your role. So that's totally fine. A lot of them, people put in other things dad, workout king, and whatever.
I love dad jokes, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Let's scroll on down a little bit. Okay, we got the about. I can't really read that, but it looks pretty brief and tight. I'd say that's probably pretty good. Thank you for zooming in.
There we go.
All right, activity. Well, you're participating. You're adding value. You're reassuring people and thanking them and doing stuff. So that's nice. You're commenting. It'd be interesting to know what kinds of stories you're sharing. And let's just you can click on see all activity.
All right. So DMG member there, Kevin, liked one of his posts.
Yeah.
This was a podcast that I was on, so giving a little thanks.
Nice. Yeah. Recognition's good.
Yeah, Dave could like those. You can notice he didn't there.
Yeah. He's
kind of
co-host.
There we go. Okay.
It's a little disappointing and a little late, I'll say. Let's go back up. What's that Smart Hair commercial? You
I like that. Yeah. So Evan, that guy's
okay.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. Cool. Are you posting anything yourself?
I am.
It looks like you're mostly participating.
I don't post as much as I need to. We have an amazing account manager that always reminds me every week that I need to post more. So
right.
Yeah, if you scroll down, I think I got one. Keep going if you don't mind, Dave. Yeah, it's let's see. No, that's another one I liked. Yeah, I need to post more, I think, is what we're gathering here. But when I do post, I think I do a halfway decent job at it. I get right there. All right, there's one. So it was St. Patrick's Day. I was bragging a little bit about our Inc. 5000 Regionals Award. If you hit see more, I got a little bit of content in there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, wrote something a little pithy.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. That's a great update. And I can see you've got 15 likes there and an additional 5 comments. So I'd say that's a great level of reaction that you're getting. So I would just say more often is probably the message there.
Like daily? Should I go daily?
No, I mean, it looks like you're doing it once every couple of weeks, maybe.
About once a week. I aim for like one post a week. That's just a regurgitation. It looks like of the same one. The activity is kind of weird, but yeah. So I do at least one a week, and then for the show, I'll also publish I'll publish the podcast. I'll even tag you in it. That's that's
right.
part of the way that I do it.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say if you could boost that up a little bit, maybe twice a week, that'd be pretty sweet.
If you scroll, I think the other one's got a little bit more engagement because, anyway. Oh, there's one with like 26. But yeah, so speaking of that, so I noticed some things with LinkedIn's algorithm, right? So if I put a video link in there, it doesn't get as many impressions as if I then kind of hack it. And I hate hacking things, but then put it in the comments. Like, do you know anything about that, or am I a little crazy?
Are the videos native, or are they like a link from something?
It would be a link from something. Yeah, we used to do it live on Facebook or YouTube or something.
Right. Okay. So what you can do is you can put native video in your company page.
Okay.
And then you can grab it and promote it. And native video will autoplay, and it tends to do a little better. But you can't post native video yet, I think, on your profile. But you can post it to your company page, and then you can grab it from there.
That's a good takeaway. Good to know.
And then for the engagements, so there's, I'm not the one that was that close to why or how something seems to take off, but I will say from my experience, things like top 5 ways, top 3, lists. Man, people love to click on lists.
Yeah, listicles.
Yeah. So and if you're like the top 5 of this, don't miss number 3. It's kind of like that, like kind of clickbaity a little bit, but but as long as if you open it and then there's value in there, people will really do, like they'll engage a lot on that one. So you'll probably see if you do your next post and you make it, top 5 things I learned from Jonathan, and he's full of shit on number 4. Then maybe you'll see some engagements, maybe you won't. But
I like that. I'm gonna take you up on that.
But I did see the in my experience, I saw like those kinds of things were really engaging. But you don't want to have a title that isn't related to the article, because there's some people that are really good at copywriting where they put in brilliant titles. Yeah. And then you get into it and you're like, where's that thing that they were promising me from the title? So
no meat.
Exactly.
And what I'm saying is some people and LinkedIn is kind of turning into Facebook. And I know we don't have to make this whole conversation about LinkedIn, but I spent a fair amount of time there. And is that something that you would recommend? Like I take, an image of some little kid, crying after blowing out its candles and smiling that its pony appears. Like, is that, is it just, or what? No rules apply. Do what you got to do to get the leads.
You're right. I don't think that's going to drive any leads for you. But to be honest, posting those videos, or
some of them have like hundreds of thousands of likes.
I know.
Like, whoa.
I know. And some of it I think is convenient. Like, so for example, like New Zealand just approved a leave if a couple has a miscarriage. And then I now see people like immediately grabbing that and going like, great job, New Zealand, great job, for that leader. And she's awesome. And it is great. Yeah. But I think they're also like, it's just sort of like a cheap and easy way to get a bunch of likes and comments.
It's feedback.
And so I think that's, that has carried over from some of the other networks, and it's started to plague the news feed a little bit. So I'm not a fan of doing that until you see me do it, and then by the way, it's a great idea. But until then, I don't think it's the best use of your time. Ideally, what you want to do, if you're providing some value, like you're providing some thought leadership, you're talking about something you can really, you're a subject matter expert on. So you're adding some thought around. It could be an article like, hey, this is my perspective on this. Wall Street Journal is talking about this. They might be right, they might be wrong. Here's my opinion. So that's good. Or just writing an original piece where you give your take on something, or you're adding value. Hey, if anybody in my network is sort of heading into this area and you're working on this kind of thing, I just did that. These are all my failings. This is what was easy. Here's what was unexpected. That stuff's brilliant. People really, really appreciate that. Because then if I'm about to do one of those projects, I'm like, oh, okay. And I say, oh, wow. Like John's got some good stuff here. Okay, I'm going to watch out for that. I'm going to watch out for this. That's what really, in my opinion, that's more about what LinkedIn's about.
I agree. And I'm one of those, I wouldn't call myself necessarily a rule follower, but I would say I respect the platforms and the things. And when I see those, it's just like, damn it. It's like the person cutting in line. It's like, I like shortcuts, but
is the damn it, I didn't do it, or like damn, I wish I did that, or is it the damn it, like that person shouldn't be up there getting those likes and clicks?
It's like two dogs fighting, right? It's just one party you want the engagement, so you can, whatever your goal is, get more of that, and the other side is I don't want to be a prick. Like I just I don't I remember I had one of those systems where it was automated. You connected with me and then I'd send you like a series of messages and whatnot. And this guy sent me this awesome message. He's like, hey, you seem like a really cool guy to connect with, so I'm going to connect with you. But I really don't appreciate the way that you're using LinkedIn. And I don't think others do either. Food for thought. And I was like, if you're going to say like, hey, man, don't send me those damn messages, like that was the best way to go about it. Right. I think it's just kind of having that type of respect. So I
think that's called negging, or it's a backhanded compliment. Just makes you feel good and then slaps you in the face as he does it.
It did, yeah, absolutely. Come to think of it, my childhood comes to mind.
Right. Or dating experiences. Just to add into that, though, look, people like seem to be the thing that everyone wants these days. And if you see Kim Kardashian with 10 million likes on the fact that she had coffee this morning, I mean, that's great. So here's my thought on it, and that is, you don't need to convince the world to like you. You only need to convince the people that are important to you.
That's a good quote, man. That's going on top of your blog post for this.
So I, because the reality is, like, if you're a company and there's 780 million people on LinkedIn, I don't need 780 million people to think my company's the best. I only need to think everyone I want to sell to that my company is the best. So that's why you have targeted ads. You're not like, LinkedIn's not like, hey, it's 10 grand and we're going to just throw it out to the first, million people, You're going to be like, no. I want these people in this industry and that industry and this industry. And that's like, you can target your content even when you write it and you're not paying for a targeted ad. You can still target it to your audience because it's going to resonate with your audience. So why would you pay for a targeted ad and then spray it at everybody? So why would you write something on LinkedIn and spray it at everybody, hoping everyone's going to click and like it? None of that is going to do anything for you other than the cheap thrill that you got 200 likes or 30 comments.
Awesome. I love it. I'm gonna every time I see those people now, Jonathan, that's exactly what I'm gonna
shoot them down with what I said. You know what? You're doing a great job on LinkedIn, but smack.
Or I'll break up this little piece of a clip and just send it to him subtly. Hey, something to think about.
Hey, this asshole was on my podcast, and this is what he says.
All right. So what about? Okay, so LinkedIn has a lot of features. Yep. You have where you can write your own blog posts on there, right? Yep. So you have that. You mentioned, doing the video. Is there anything else that somebody's potentially not taking advantage of for their social selling?
Well, quickly, my experience. I've written an article and I've written posts. Yep. For whatever reason, my posts do well and my articles are like just go nowhere. So if you're gonna write something, I don't know what it is with the algorithm. I think I did it while I was there, and it just didn't do anything for me. So I would say write the post, don't write the artitle.
Good to know.
Articles just don't seem to get the traction unless you've got some crazy following. But I don't have that. So.
Okay. All right. No, that's a good takeaway. So I'll stop beating myself up because I'm like, oh, maybe I should write that post on there. And I've seen others do it as well. And I agree. I don't see a ton of engagement, but like the little unicorn birthday pictures that I'm saying. But what I'm hearing is write to your audience, post, do the 3-2-1 method. Is there any other recommendations based on this platform?
Well, and then if you've got a business and you have employees, then I'll just sort of give you a bit of LinkedIn math. But so the average LinkedIn member overall has somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 connections. And so if you have a company, let's say you have a company and you have 50 employees, the average company with 50 employees has somewhere around 1,000 followers. So when you do a company page update, 1,000 people are going to see that in their news feed. That includes your 50 employees that work for you. Then if you get one employee to share that story, they're going to reach 800 people. So if you get all 50 employees to share that update, they're going to reach 40,000 people. So your company update reaches 1,000, your employees can reach 40,000. Free advertising, you've got an evergreen channel through your employees. I'd say take full advantage of that. And so that ratio of 3-2-1, giving your employees thought leadership to share it, giving your employees industry news to share, and then periodically ask them to share out a piece about the company. That's going to drive more success into companies that you already have relationships with to expand, and it's going to help you land new relationships as well.
What do you think? I've heard of people talking about like the ownership of the employees. There's resistance for employees to push the company line. Yep. And they feel that's their account. They don't want to have to push. Have you run into resistance or issues where companies have had to navigate that, or how did they convince the employees to do it?
Well, it would have to be volunteer basis. And there's a lot of platforms, and that's how I spend my time with Social HP is we implement these kinds of programs at companies. And so it's really all around the messaging. And so if you say like, hey, here's something we're doing and we expect all of you to do it, you're definitely going to get some resistance. Hey, I work here. My job is not your advertising campaign. So, move along. But if I go to those employees and I say, hey, here's what we're looking to do. We're looking to add value to your networks. We're looking to raise your professional profile. We're trying to make you look like a subject matter expert in the industry. And also, we're going to tout the company a little bit as well. And so this is kind of the ratio. Here's how often we're looking, to utilize your networks. But what it'll end up doing is, to be honest, make them more marketable. So they're definitely going to want that marketability. If the next time I apply for a job and everyone thinks I'm a subject matter expert in a whole bunch of areas and I had to do very little work to actually convince people that that's the case, I'm going to raise my hand. So overall, if you have a small company, it's not that difficult to get a bunch of people to sign up. If you have a really large company, like you have 50,000 employees, probably the most you'll ever get is 50% of them to sign up for something like this. And it would take you some time messaging in a campaign in order to be able to roll that out. And then statistically, from my experience in running these kinds of platforms and programs at LinkedIn, usage is a real problem. So, you can, if you think about example, like when I worked at LinkedIn, we would log in with Okta. So that's your single sign-on. And then you'd basically just have like a wall of apps. So it was all the different tools I had access to. Mm-hmm. My goal was to use the least amount of those apps to get my job done. Because, I don't want to be like, oh, there's 75 apps. Like all I'm doing is just using apps and apps and apps and duplicating my effort. So you can give people technology, but trying to get them to use it every day. If they're not going to get fired if they don't do it, right, they're probably not going to do it. And another example would be you go for training sessions. I used to go for training with various companies all the time. They'd give you a binder, and at the end of the training session, you're like, "Oh my gosh, this training session was so great! Thank God for you told me my color is yellow." And then and it is valuable. Like you are learning stuff about yourself, and then they say every week, what you're going to do is you're going to open up the binder and you're going to fill out the page. And then you're going to make your notes. And then the next week, you're going to check your notes from the previous week. And then you're going to make your notes for next week. And you're like, oh, yeah, totally show that. I'm 100% going to do that. And then you grab the binder, you get back to your desk, you slide it on the shelf with all the other binders that you've never touched since you've had training. And it's all just collecting dust. That's what happens with most of the apps that are now delivered to employees. And you roll it out to employees, you give them technology, and all they want to do is reduce and reuse, not keep signing up for more stuff. So that's the resistance, right? And so that's my experience when I was at LinkedIn, is all down to usage. The very, very best I ever saw, they had 10,000 employees on, and they were crushing it with 35% usage. So on a monthly basis, they had, so 3,500 people, but they were like 6,500 people weren't using it. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. 6,500 people signed up, but they didn't use it. So how we address that now with where I spend my time with Social HP is we built a do it for me functionality. So basically employees can sign up and say, I do not actually want to be a social media expert. You're the social media expert. So why don't you share the stuff I should be sharing when I should be sharing it, and I don't have to talk to you again. And that's what we do. We built that functionality. And then they can have a like, don't even ever talk to me again and just take care of it. Or we'll build this perfect sharing cadence for you. And then we'll just deliver a message to you the day before saying, hey, this is all set to go out tomorrow. Can you just approve it? It's like, showing up with dinner on the plate and going, hey, are you guys hungry? So that's how we try and address that. And I'm happy to be spending my time in this space because it answers the real problem of where I was when I was at LinkedIn when we were rolling this kind of tool out.
So you could use a set it and forget it method, right?
Yep.
That employees use. But will the algorithm just is there?
No, there's a person. There's somebody that's like picks this story and says, this is good for our sales reps to share in this vertical. And then this story is great for our recruiters to share. And then this story is great for our executives to share. And then this is great, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And with nominal input, so you've got one social media person with nominal input, like an hour and a half a month, they can plan out hundreds, if not thousands of employees' calendars quite easily, just with a few clicks. It's super easy.
And you can rewrite like the post that you want those employees to say?
Yep. And you can even give them like multiple text options, multiple image options, by network. It's pretty crazy what's available now.
And do you guys do anything on any other platforms, or is it mainly LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Xing in Germany.
Xing in Germany?
Xing. It's basically the LinkedIn of Germany.
Really? How does LinkedIn do in Germany competing against Xing?
For the first few years when I was at LinkedIn, not that well. Xing was kicking LinkedIn's ass. And now I think LinkedIn's ahead, but not a ton. Xing's just a really good platform, and the Germans really like it.
Ah, interesting. And it's just in Germany. There's no Xing anywhere else. I've never heard of this.
I think it's fairly well represented in German-speaking countries.
Yeah, my wife's German. She doesn't speak German, but that's her heritage.
Well, so she probably has a Xing profile. You should find out what she's up to.
Like, honey, you've been hiding this from me all along.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She probably says Xing under her breath, and you don't even know about
it. All right. So the employee amplification. One concern with a lot of companies, especially in the tech space, are these recruiters.
Yep.
These recruiters are relentless.
Right. They're going after my employees.
They'll go after your employees. And the worst ones will recruit for you and then also recruit against you. Yeah. But so that's a concern.
Oh my gosh, you seem to have this opening. How do you know I have the opening? Oh, well, I took that person and I put them over in this other company. Yeah, but I know exactly the profile because I stole that person from you. So I can give you a new one. Yeah. I know the deal. The short answer is if your employee's going to leave, they were going to leave. Yeah. So if you're doing a great job keeping your employees happy, then their tenure is going to be longer. And if it's how attentive are you with your employee group? So, are you delivering the right services to them? Are you providing value? Do they have a career trajectory? Are they excited about being there? Do they work on cool technology? Are they excited about the projects, et cetera? And then from a talent acquisition standpoint, you need to know where you stand. And LinkedIn does a very good job of being able to stack rank you against anybody you care about. So if you're like, hey, we need to hire technology people, and we seem to be nowhere on the radar list, and Google and LinkedIn and all these other tech companies are hiring up all these amazing people, and we can't get any of them, and then you need to change the perception. You need to tell your story, get your EVP out there in front of the right audiences, and keep it on. And you can do that through employees, because employees love to talk about how great their place of work is, how great the campus is, the services they have, the cool projects they're working on. And you can even highlight employees like, hey, Sarah this week, she's such a great employee, and here's why. just because you highlight people doesn't mean they're immediately going to get stolen away, or talk about the great work environment. It's kind of the opposite. It attracts more people in. So leadership have always, for whatever reason, thought like, if anyone finds out I have these employees, they'll all get stolen away. and you know what? If some of them get stolen away, they were going anyway. Before LinkedIn, recruiters would have to cold call, and they would get you on the phone and they'd be like, hey, what's going on? Hey, I understand you're on this team. You have these skills. Just wondering if you're interested, you're open to other opportunities. How are things going there? What's your timeline like? And then they'll be straight up. Yeah. You know what? I'm new here. I love it here. It's amazing. It's not me right now. And then the recruiter will say, okay, cool. Do you know anybody else that you'd recommend? And a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, Steve, who sits beside me, I hate, would be ideal for you to recruit. And then they're like, okay, cool. Can I have Steve's contact information? They hand it over, and then they get rid of the team members they don't like anymore. So, but even if, then the recruiter calls Steve, and if Steve isn't happy, then Steve's going to leave. So you got to keep people happy. To be honest, part of sharing good quality content reminds people of the great place they're working at. So if I like log in, and even if I had to do it for me, like, all of a sudden there's this great thought leadership piece that goes out by one of our senior leaders. I'm like, oh yeah, that person really is smart. Yeah, it's my leader. Oh, that's pretty cool. Or, oh, we're doing this great thing in the community. So, half of it's awareness internally. The other half is awareness external. So it's a great way to build the retention angle as well. Not only that, and then also recruiting in new people.
I love that. And with us internally, maybe it's just our humor. So there was a post that our social media manager put up in our Slack channel, like, hey, it was the podcast one with me, and hey, why don't you share this? I'm not going to say who, but some cynics were making fun of the image, the gradient on it. So I'm happy they did that internally rather than externally. But by the way, that was a fantastic rebuttal to that question.
All right.
So, I want to acknowledge that. What I would say though is what is a social selling process look like? Do you recommend the prospecting outreach? Is it just the best way to take this organic method? What is the best practice that you see in an ecosystem based on any one of the platforms for the best result?
Well, I mean, I'm most familiar with LinkedIn, so
yeah,
I'll say that's
what I use the most. Perfect.
And then, so I would say, if you look at your typical sales funnel or your typical marketing funnel, we don't spend enough time at the top building the awareness, getting people sort of flowing in at the top of the sales funnel. And so there's a difference between, you definitely need to do some cold outreach sometimes, or warm outreach, and asking for intros and all those kinds of things. The conversation goes differently when it's, hey, I'd like to introduce you to John, and, he has this company and he offers these services, versus, hey, I'd like to introduce you to John. And they go, oh yeah. He works at XYZ and he offers these services. And the person's already familiar. So that's really what social selling helps to do, is build up the awareness so that you're warming up your audience, and you're not doing it by a campaign. Like a paid campaign is a finite thing. Usually it's an offer, or it's something like you want somebody to take action. Hey, we have this product, please click, and I hope to God you buy it. Whereas, social media, like an evergreen channel that, for example, communicating through your employees and communicating through your corporate channels, the owned and the earned, then you have an opportunity to talk to the audience that you care about, your existing customers and your future customers. And so what you're doing is you're building that relationship over time. If we think about like a large decision, and a great example is somebody being hired somewhere. It might take me 8 months to go from where I am to leaving and getting a job at this other place. Well, if that company has had 25 touch points with me between now and that 8 months, they are probably way up on my list of companies that I want to think about working at. Well, it's the exact same thing from a sales perspective. So if I'm in nowhere land from a company perspective, but I'm doing a great job over a number of months building the awareness with my current customers, building the awareness with my prospect customers, building up the profile of our employees, that they're thought leaders, that they're going to be your partner, and that they're really going to add value, and that we don't just sell services, but we really are thinking about the way we do business in a different way. Whatever your brand and however you represent your company, if you're constantly delivering that message, then by the time you reach out to them, they're much more receptive. They're much more likely to respond in a positive way, either to a connection request or a, hey, can we set up a call and book a chat? Because sometimes it could be a prospect where you've shared something and then they comment on your story like, this is really insightful. Thank you so much. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, we're actually subject matter experts on this. Happy to have a conversation with you guys. If you're really, if you're diving into this a little bit more, we can provide some value. Odds are they're going to say, yeah, that would be brilliant. And then of course, that's exactly what you sell. You're right on track with a conversation. It just goes naturally straight at the end of you helping them out too. I noticed you guys actually sell this stuff. So should we be taking you guys, into account when we make our decision? And the answer is, yeah. Not account, right at the front.
It's a familiarity. Do you have any recommendations based on using Sales Navigator? And the reason I say this, I have a friend who works in sales, does a fantastic job. He has all of these things like hooked up to make it look like he's seducing or stalking you to some respects, right? He's got this duck soup thing, and he's liking your thing and sends you an email like, this is a great article, and so on and so forth. Right. What are your thoughts on best practices to, I guess, create that environment, if any? Well, I mean, there might be a little bit, too much. There can be too much where it's like, hey, thanks for breathing today, and you're like, okay, this I don't know if you're aware this is going on all the time, but I think there's a limit as to how much you want to be following somebody around digitally, but. Sales Navigator is a great tool. You just have to make sure you use it. All these tools can be really, really valuable and helpful. You just have to make sure you use them. If you're using, for example, if you're using social sharing and you're using tools like Sales Navigator, you're connecting with people that are important. I think LinkedIn's got a good stat. I don't know if I have it off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure people that do social selling, there's something like 70% more likely to hit their quota. So, it really does make a difference, but it's not just, hitting people up. It's about, telling a story over a course of time, providing value. And so, I can't comment on too many tools other than they're valuable, but you just don't want to overextend yourself. It's kind of the difference between just sharing for the sake of sharing or, trying to jump to the front of the line versus being smart and effective about it. Because you can also invest too much time in it. Yeah, see diminishing returns. And speaking of time, how much time should somebody be spending in their social selling campaign or even their LinkedIn to top of the funnel campaign? You mentioned an hour and a half earlier, but I mean, do you have any ranges? Well, an hour and a half, I think, is for the person that is managing a platform for the employees. I think you could do it like in that amount of time and not have to invest more unless you're writing copy. But I don't have a specific answer, and I don't think I can give you like a bulletproof example on this because it really just depends on the nature of who you're selling to, how many people are in the top of the sales funnel versus what stage you've got. And so, I for whatever reason, my experience has been that salespeople or people that have to sell, they seem to do things in waves. I do a lot of activity to build the top of the funnel. Then I do a lot of activity where I try and pull those people down to the next level. Then I've got 10 prospects. Now I focus on those meetings. And now I've got, 5 serious, contenders. And then I sell 2 deals. And then I look up and I go, I have no one at the top of the funnel anymore, right? Like I was so focused on this stuff. I've got to start over again. So social selling helps to constantly keep people coming into the top of the funnel and building that awareness. And so, it really depends on the volume of customers, the potential target, how big that target audience is that you have. If you need to impress millions of people, you probably got to spend some serious amount of time in it. Whereas if you've got a finite audience that's very, very select, like if you're in the AI space and you've got, several hundred potential people to be able to buy from you in the world, you got to kick it up a notch. Just making cold calls isn't going to work. You've got to add some value and you've got to build some serious relationships. Got to have somebody assigned to it specifically. Yeah. Dave, have you ever done outreach on your own on LinkedIn? Well, like what does Dave's outreach on LinkedIn look like?
Well, mostly I'm the recruiter role. That's I rarely use LinkedIn to go after sales, but I will say that when we lose an employee and I have to go out recruiting, I get on LinkedIn, I start sending messages, and actually really enjoyed it. It reminds me of why I built what I built and what we do here, and then having to put that message out there over and over again. I'm not a big posting. I'm just not active on social media at all. Just because I just don't see the value. That's just me, though.
It could make the recruiting efforts that much easier based on what Jonathan said.
It actually would, yeah.
Not
posting jobs, but I mean, periodically maybe, but talking about the culture, talking about the environment, talking about the people, that makes a difference for talent acquisition.
Yeah, we do that. I just feel like there's a critical mass that you have to achieve before you get the effects of that. When you're in the agency world like us and we're 25 employee, I just don't think the reputational part actually plays into effect until you're like a regional brand. Because I mean, even the people that are right down the road are like, oh, what do you do? Websites? I didn't even know that. And I mean, like,
Right.
You literally drive by my office and there's a big sign that says what we do every single day. We're just not big enough to people to pay attention. Well, and I think that holds true on social media as well.
People have a lot of things happening, right? And there's a lot of things fighting for their attention.
Right.
So, from a recruitment standpoint, the best success is through your employees' networks. Referrals tend to be more successful. They tend to start better. They tend to stay longer. They tend to get promoted faster. And that's because the employee, if they're good, the employee that you've hired, they have a lot of similar and like people that have been in their networks on similar teams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're sharing, not just you, but if you're sharing through your 25 employees, which is the reach of roughly 20,000 people, you're reaching 20,000 potential prospects for your organization that you're building those relationships with. They're learning about the company over the course of time, so that when they're ready to change jobs, you're top of the list, or at least in the top 3. And that's what you want. You want as a goal, you want to at least be a known commodity, rather than, hey, you happen to be connected to one of our employees. Why don't you talk to Michael or Sarah and find out what they think of us before stepping in for an interview. It's not that it's not doable. It's just easier to do it the other way.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things we do is share our awards, our Inc. 5000s, our local awards, and I think that has been one of the number one catalysts for recruiting, because we do share it on social media. Sure. People see that, and then they want to be part of an up and coming, growing, successful company. That's one of the I would say awards and successes are the things people are like, all right, I want to be a part of that.
Right. So. Yeah. So I think you've now convinced yourself the other way.
Yeah. I don't do it. I allow my team to market on our social network. So.
All right. Well, maybe your network has no value. Maybe no one you're connected to is good for your organization.
But I actually, wholeheartedly believe in a platform like you're describing is being truly valuable for someone like me that doesn't want to put that time into. You were basically talking to me when you were saying, "Hey, let me click a button that says okay," and then go
and
off
then don't talk to me again. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you're like most employees that you don't want to invest all your time in stuff that isn't part of your core focus.
Right.
I would sign up for that every day of the week. That's my thing as well. I want to do the least amount of work to get my job done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if it meets spec, no reason to go more.
I don't know if I necessarily relate with that comment, because I just don't look at being a cheerleader on. What's that?
I said, now you're judging me.
No, I'm just saying I just don't look at my job as being the social cheerleader for the company, and I just don't feel like that is the best use of my time. So.
It isn't. That's why it should be done automatically for you.
Yeah, I agree.
So you don't think the algorithm is going to outsmart this product? What is it? Let's give a plug.
No, Social HP. No, LinkedIn wants this kind of platform. They want this. So I'll quickly explain why LinkedIn got rid of Elevate. So in the course of 4 years, they sold to 500 corporate customers and a little over 1 million Elevate seats. And so what LinkedIn noticed was that when you give this kind of a platform where employees can share more content, then it drives more sessions. And sessions means they can sell more advertising. And so if a company like IBM comes to LinkedIn and says, hey, instead of spending X this year, I want to spend an extra 20 million, LinkedIn very commonly would say, well, your target audience is, we don't have enough inventory. So you're going to have to wait this many months, which is going to click into next year. So we can't actually take your extra money this year. So they'd have to turn down a lot of potential revenue dollars or ad revenue. And so with this kind of a platform, which is what Elevate was doing, it's what Social HP does, your employees are sharing content. If they're part of that audience, that target audience for IBM or their networks are, then that means that we're generating more sessions, therefore more opportunity for LinkedIn to be able to sell these ad spaces. And so the reason why they got rid of Elevate is because it only had 1 million people on it. And there's 780 million people on LinkedIn. So they took a few of the very basic functions of that product called Elevate, and they put it into the LinkedIn Pages experience. And so they're hoping that if it's 30 million or 50 million people do a little more sharing, that's a heck of a lot more than 1 million people doing a decent amount of sharing. And so therefore giving them the opportunity to not make 50 million bucks from the Elevate platform, but to add potentially billions of dollars in revenue because a whole bunch more people are sharing a lot more content, engaging in content, et cetera. More clicks means more opportunity to sell. So this platform is generating a lot more activity on the LinkedIn platform, and therefore LinkedIn is all over it and wants it.
Got it. And you said 780 million people on LinkedIn. What is the usage rate? Do you have any of that data?
I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% of them are actually active on a monthly basis.
Okay. All right. And I noticed LinkedIn's not as aggressive as Facebook, who sent me a text message the other day that my aunt posted something. I barely go on Facebook. I was like, man, I don't give a damn. I was like, I love my aunt and all, but we talk from time to time.
Did you get a text that said your aunt bought a coffee? You should totally see this photo. It's amazing. She bought a coffee. No, I don't need it.
So that's interesting. I think LinkedIn is far more aggressive than Facebook. I get emails nonstop from LinkedIn. Like, look at who's looking at you. Here's some new things some people posted. Here's work anniversaries. Congratulate this person on this job. I mean, it's like nonstop. Facebook never.
I agree. LinkedIn does send a lot of. You could, by the way, switch all those off.
Maybe I switched them all off. Yeah, and the only one
you can just go into your settings and just hit no more notifications, and then that's the end of it. But for those those folks that haven't seen that yet, then it can be a lot. That was a very common comment I would get while I was working there. Is that, oh, you work at LinkedIn? Yeah, they're constantly messaging me. I'm like, it's not me. I'm not constantly messaging you. I'm just an innocent guy who works there. Leave me alone.
I tell you, there was one issue where when it asked, this was early on, when it asked you to load up your entire contact list, right?
Right.
And you would send them, and it would ask them to join LinkedIn. I had a friend who just abhors social media. He called me up and he said, "Hey, stop sending me these messages to get on LinkedIn. I have no interest." And I was like, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I was thinking about it. I was like, that was like years ago.
Right.
So he just tolerated it over and over.
LinkedIn's been stalking them. I bet back then when you added your content, your contacts, probably if you had your sound on, it probably would have done something like,
probably, man.
We've got you.
Yeah, but overall, I like the product. I think it's LinkedIn is far superior to any of the others based on what I do. I work a lot. I love what I do, and so I think that's the best way. But I am concerned based on not necessarily your product, but the way that people are using it. Do you foresee them putting in changes that will take effect like Facebook, where they're forcing you to advertise more, getting rid of that organic reach?
I don't know. I don't think so, because again, it creates sessions, and that's what they care about. Even like Facebook cares about sessions. The more you click around on Facebook, the more like, oh, now we can make an extra $10 because you did 10 more clicks today, and it's $1 a click, because every time you click, it's throwing an ad up.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity for them to put put stuff in there. So no, they want it. That's why they're sending you the text message about your aunt, cooking up some fries on her stove.
So
go ahead, Dave. And then
I was going to say, as a subject matter expert here, what is your take on Instagram removing the number of likes per post?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing, because there's some people where that's like an addiction.
Oh, yeah.
Like they were doing crazier and crazier stuff, like planking off a bridge or whatever it was when it was trendy, to try and get 10,000 likes or whatever it is. So, or if I get this many likes, something's going to happen. So all of those platforms, I think there's it's perpetuating some issues that we all probably have, like the need for attention and the wants for praise. And so, I think it's a good thing.
The cynic in me wants to say that they're doing it because they want to disguise the popular content so that they basically can implement a pay-to-play strategy for all content and just remove the organicness out of it.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty reasonable take. There's probably certain kinds of content where that would be very applicable, that it's very valuable to have. If you have to pay, to put your stuff towards the top. Right. But because there's a lot more sponsored updates that are happening on those kinds of platforms, where you've got somebody that's an influencer, right, that's getting paid to do something. And I think they want to lower the success of that.
Yep.
And that's where
they want to make their money.
Yeah, and that's where I guess the concern is with LinkedIn. Is it going to turn into that once you have all of those influencers that are willing to hang off of a cliff and risk their lives? Some have died. It's just insane. But yeah, that's a concern. But I do think, regardless, your product would be well placed to continually fight for that organic reach that is necessary.
Yeah, well, I think Social HP's platform is providing the gasoline, for that engine, and so as long as it's doing that, then they want it.
Amen. All right. What are just in general? What is something that companies aren't doing that they should be doing?
Well, they're not there. I mean, we've covered this topic, but they're not taking advantage of the assets that they have access to, that are free. So, sharing through employees is definitely like a huge missed opportunity by most companies. And understanding where they sit is probably another missed opportunity, which is, they're too focused on trying to convince the world and not who their target audience is. And so I'd say those are probably two big ones.
Okay. And what have I not covered that the world should know? We
could talk a little bit about share of voice.
Okay. Let's do it.
It kind of ties into some of the other things we've talked about. But LinkedIn, what they can do is they can tell you, basically, let's say you're in a particular industry, and I'll reference artificial intelligence again, just because it's finite and it's a specific thing. So let's say you're IBM and you have a division, and you're in the AI space, and you happen to be competing with 5 other companies in the AI space. The topic, artificial intelligence, there's lots of conversation about that on LinkedIn. You may not see it, but it's because we're not in that space. But there's going to be a lot of conversation around it. And so what LinkedIn will be able to do is tell you what your share of voice is. So, for example, if there's 10,000 conversations happening about AI, what percentage of those conversations are you involved in? And that's your share of voice. So it could be 0.5%, it could be 30%. And then what they can also do is tell you how you're stack ranked against all of your competitors. So they can tell you, like, hey, you've got a 0.5% share of voice. By the way, your nearest competitor has 5% share of voice. And so it's a great incentive to be able to say, like, do you want to do something about that? Typically, that's managed through paid campaigns. And so they'll say, hey, if you want to go from 0.5% and you want to own it, you want to get up to 10%, double your nearest competitor. If you give us this amount of money and then we deliver these kinds of content, in this engaging way, we'll be able to get you this percentage of share of voice. Therefore, you're the top of mind. You're top of mind for all of this particular target audience. Therefore, you're likely to engage more people in meaningful conversations about business. So that's kind of how share of voice is measured. And then in the world, so that's on the side for paid. In the world for owned would be, when you do your company page updates and et cetera, then that's how you can calculate into that share of voice or provide some voice into it. And then from an earned perspective, when we look at the math of a company that has 50 employees and say 1,000 followers, and that those 50 employees have a reach of say 40,000, what size of company has the same amount of followers, like has 40,000 followers? It might be a company that has 2,000 employees. So that's how you can be sort of the great equalizer, where you can have the same share of voice, even though you only have 50 employees, you can have the same share of voice as a company that has 2,000 employees, because you're utilizing the voice of those employees where the other company isn't. The only way they can then up you is by doing paid campaigns. And so it becomes a great equalizer, as being able to utilize certain tools, certain I guess, pieces of the LinkedIn ecosystem to drive your message forward without having to commit major bucks behind it.
Without paying, is there a way to see share voice?
Typically, they only calculate it for very big companies. But the concept is applicable to everybody, in the fact that, again, you don't need to convince the world that you're amazing. You just need to convince the people that you care about. And then on that, are you participating in the conversation in a meaningful way? And is that being delivered consistently?
Reminds me that, I'll get notifications that, hey, they're having a topic about digital marketing. Do you want to chime in? And
right.
That is something that would be fed into based on this share of voice. Somebody obviously gets a bigger piece of it than me.
Yeah, and they want you to put hashtags in on your company page, so that way they can circle back with you every time there's conversations.
It seems like those company pages, though, and you post something from a company page and nothing happens with it.
It's because you don't have enough followers.
Damn it. You had to call that out, didn't you, Jonathan?
Yeah.
All right. No, I appreciate it. I know we're almost coming at time up here. I want to give you this space now to just plug anything that you want. This is your space.
I appreciate it. Look, hey, thanks for having me on. For companies that want to do some of what I've been talking about, which is amplify their message and compete with bigger companies at a fraction of the price. That's kind of what we specialize in, which is earned media. So, hook us up with a conversation. It's Jonathan Baldock, and it's Social HP.
Awesome, Jonathan. Thank you so much for being with us, man. Really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun today.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
All
man.
right. Appreciate it.